Do you feel both the pressure to have this breakthrough for democracy in Texas, and how realistic now do you think it is?
I tell you, I think that the people of Texas and really the people of this country understand that whether it's the chaos that Greg Abbott's creating on the border, this war on women, or this attack on democracy, harder to vote or register to vote in Texas than it is in any other state. If we want to do something about it, we have got to win this next election. And in so doing, get focused again on the things that are most important to all of us. Great jobs, world-class schools, the ability to see a doctor, Republicans, Democrats, independents in this state. And I know because I've listened to them everywhere across Texas, they can agree on that much. But first, we've got to win. And Lawrence, yes, I'm really encouraged because more than 61,000 people have signed up to volunteer, to knock on doors, to go reach those voters who are the very targets of voter suppression and voter intimidation in the state of Texas. And I think it will be some profound justice on election night in November of this year when those same voters who've been targeted for exclusion become the margin of victory when we win this thing. And we're going to win it because we have our fellow Texans out there knocking on their doors and bringing them into this democracy. I wish that the Department of Justice would intervene on voting rights right now. I wish the Supreme Court would do the right thing on a woman's right to choose, but we cannot hold our breath or wait for the cavalry to arrive. We've got to depend on one another. But I'm encouraged because as I travel this state, people are stepping up to be counted, going out there, getting after it, and doing the work that will win elections. So I actually feel really good about things here in the state of Texas. Texas stepping up to fix our problems and to make sure that we overcome these challenges and win this for the people of Texas and given our outsized impact on this country for the people of the United States.
Congressman, we know that voting rights is one of the most important issues to black voters. It's something that black voters speak about almost every time there's an election. But as you know, this is not something that's just concerning black voters. Americans in rural America are having their voting rights threatened. Maybe even some conservatives and Latino Americans, all of these demographics that are well represented in your state. How do you get people who have made up in their minds that this is an issue that doesn't really concern them and somehow could even hurt them if the voting rights of certain demographics are expanded, to realize that this is something that is in their best interest and that affects their idea of what America can be and should be as well?
You're right. These voter suppression bills are so often targeted at specific populations, historically black and brown voters. In the new Texas bills, it's voters with disabilities. It's the very young, it's the very old. And it's voters not just in urban counties, but sometimes in rural communities who are going to have a harder time getting to the polls or voting early or voting by mail. I think the important thing to do, and Bishop Barber has done an excellent job of this, is to connect voting to everything else that we want to change and improve in our lives. Texas has a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. It's not going to be raised unless more people vote. We are the least insured state in the country where people still die of diabetes and the flu and curable cancers because they literally cannot see a doctor. We're not going to expand Medicaid in this state unless people can vote. Last year, 7 million eligible Texans didn't participate, and that was not for lack of love of our democracy. It's because this state makes it harder than any other to be able to cast that ballot. So if we want to change this state, this country for the better, we've got to vote. And if we're going to be able to vote, we need new voting rights legislation like the For the People Act. So very important that we keep the pressure up on the Senate and on the president to get that done.
So let me close with this. For those who are tempted to despair at this moment, given everything that we're up against, those Republicans who'd rather defend insurrection than support our democracy, these rigged voting laws in Georgia, in Florida, and a dozen other states that are going to make it harder for so many millions of our fellow Americans to vote. I ask you to think about Dr. Lawrence Nixon. I ask you to think about John Lewis. I ask you to think about every man and every woman who had the courage of their convictions and did what they needed to do at their own moment of truth in this country's history. Are we going to fight for the right to vote?